I'd rather have Donald Trump as a dictator for 4 years. Absolutely.
This country needs a dictator. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
He could stand on the front steps of the White House and commit murder, and I'm with him.
If he says it, then I'll go with it, and if he wants to be a dictator, then so be it.
At what point do we start to believe him? Because when somebody says they want to be a dictator on day one over and over, when somebody tries to subvert the will of the American people in 12 different ways, when somebody delays the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in American history, or even when someone says that people should lose their citizenships if they burn a US flag, at what point do we actually start to believe Donald Trump and his fan base? And I know that you guys already understand the threat. This isn't as much aimed at you guys as it is the broader population, even the Republicans who understand that Donald Trump is a threat but won't speak out, won't acknowledge the fact that this is somebody who wants to be a dictator. I have a few clips to play for you guys today. One is from Charlie Kirk's show, where he has a guest on who talks about Donald Trump becoming a dictator, and then I also have one of President Biden talking about Donald Trump. And there's this trap that I see the mainstream media fall into, and I even see it happening in this independent digital media space, where they only play Donald Trump's clips over and over. Every time Trump gives a speech or says something, they give him this free, earned media. And while it's good to show people how crazy Donald Trump can be, I start to notice that nobody actually covers what President Biden says because it doesn't get as many views or as many clicks. So I want to show you guys this clip of President Biden last night. It's a great one where he talks about Donald Trump's ambitions to be a dictator. Then I'll break it down after and provide some supporting evidence.
On the third anniversary of January 6th, I went to Valley Forge, and I said the most urgent question of our time is whether democracy is still the sacred cause of America. That is the question the American people must answer this year. A defeated former president has made no secret of his attack on our democracy. He said he wants to be a dictator on day one, and so much more. He tells supporters he is their revenge and retribution. When in God's name have you ever heard of another president say something like that? And he promised a bloodbath when he loses again. We have to take this seriously. 8 years ago, you could have written off it as just Trump talk, but no longer, not after January 6th. I'm sincerely not asking of you to take sides, but asking you to rise up to the seriousness of the moment. Move past the horse race numbers and the gotcha moments and the distractions, the sideshows that have come to dominate and sensationalize our politics. And focus on what's actually at stake. And I think in your hearts you know what's at stake. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every single one of us has a role to play, a serious role to play, in making sure democracy endures, American democracy. I have my role, but with all due respect, so do you. In the age of disinformation, credible information that people can trust is more important than ever. And that makes you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, makes you more important than ever. So tonight, I'd like to make a toast to a free press, to an informed citizenry, to an America where freedom and democracy endure. God bless America.
I mean, first of all, if you compare that to Donald Trump's remarks about the media being the enemy of the people, constantly attacking certain journalists and certain outlets, there is a stark difference. And the thing is, you can go down the list on every single issue separately, and President Biden will be much better. If you believe in climate change, President Biden passed a large climate change bill. Donald Trump rolled back EPA protections. When it comes to abortion, President Biden is pro-choice. Donald Trump appointed the Supreme Court justices that led to Roe v. Wade being overturned. When it comes to stuff like NATO, we have the most cohesive coalition that we've had in decades, partly thanks to Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump would like to pull us out of NATO and basically screw over our allies. When it comes to healthcare, when it comes to every single thing, rhetoric, divisiveness, it is so clear that President Biden is better. But the big one, the big headline is democracy. Donald Trump is a wannabe dictator, and he has proven that that time and time again. And wannabe dictator, those aren't just my words. Those are the words of former General Mark Milley, who was sort of on Donald Trump's side for a while until he saw the January 6th coup attempt. And Donald Trump just can't seem to suppress these authoritarian urges that he has and that he's had ever since 2015, maybe even before that. I mean, remember, his claim to fame within American politics was spreading that birther conspiracy about Obama. But that is besides the point. If Donald Trump wins a second term, all of those guardrails that existed during his first 4 years will not be there. He had people in his cabinet keeping him in check. He had people preventing him from acting on these authoritarian urges. Think of people like Mike Pence, who you can say a lot about Mike Pence, but he did the right thing on January 6th. Even in the last few weeks of Trump's presidency, people from the DOJ sat him down and threatened to resign en masse if he didn't stop spreading these lies and stop threatening to fire people. And as my friend Pondering Politics says, just because the guardrails held barely during Trump's first term does not mean we should give him the keys to the truck and let him try to drive off the road again, because there is a very high chance that the guardrails, since they're already weakened, won't work in the same way. They won't hold in the same way. And when President Trump learns from his mistakes for the first time in history and places people around him that are only loyalists, he won't have any of these Mike Pences, these Mark Meadows, these Mark Espers, these people who are keeping him in check. He'll only have these crazy loyalists like Rudy Giuliani, like Roger Stone, people like this. Then he will go off the rails immediately. And that is when we begin to lose our democracy as we know it. Because I'm sure, as you guys know, if he enacts this Project 2025 plan, that means he will put tens of thousands of loyalists in positions of power in the government. They will start to break all of these norms for him, and he will promise to pardon them just like he pardoned the so-called January 6th hostages. So there is a real threat here. Look at this clip from Charlie Kirk's show where he has someone on talking about Trump needing to become a dictator to save this country.
In order to remedy this sort of great imbalance, or this usurpation of the legislative and judicial branches over the executive branch, which has become the Democratic branch with a small d, and thus has been rendered utterly toothless in the sense that the president himself has power over the government. The only remedy for this wrong is to put the president entirely in charge of the government. And that essentially means that the executive branch, far from being checked and balanced in a way that does not work and has left the executive branch not checked and balanced, but simply hogtied and held hostage, is to render the executive branch completely unilateral.
And what this dude's saying tracks perfectly onto Project 2025. They want to strip independency from all of the other branches, all of the other agencies in America that Donald Trump has spent years attacking, like the FBI and the DOJ, and make them work at the behest of Donald Trump. That, plus tens of thousands of civil servants that are loyal to Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to take over the government. His supporters are okay with him taking over the government and making decisions unilaterally. They are okay with having a king, and this is what we need to vote against. My name is Mockler. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment a blue heart if you made it this far, subscribe, but most importantly, have a great rest of your day, even though this video had kind of a heavy topic.